Hello, leader. Joining me today is Carla Willock. She owns Victoria Speech and Language Centre in Victoria, British Columbia, out on the west coast of Canada. She's also a member of the Leadership Lab, and you're going to think you just attended a masterclass because Carla is blowing the lid off of some of the hard leadership decisions she's had to make inside her large private practice with 2 locations and many programs running in schools, daycares, and private homes. Welcome to the Stacking Your Team podcast, smart leadership for women who mean business. This show has been on air since 2018 to help women who own established brick-and-mortar businesses fix the people side of their business so they can stop carrying payroll pressure, stop over-functioning as the default decision maker, and build a team that actually performs without burning anyone out or damaging their reputation. I'm your host, Shelley Warren. My entire career has been built on leadership coaching, team development, and creating accountable, productive cultures inside real workplaces. Over here, we don't just talk about leadership, we live it. This isn't online leadership theory, academic research, or HR speak. The work we do here is grounded in real teams, real workplaces, and real consequences. Each episode delivers practical, no-fluff strategies to help you lead a team that can carry the business forward with you, not on your back. And I'll say it again, the team that got you here might not be the team that gets you there. Let's go. Here's a bit about our guest today. Carla Willock is the founder and clinical director of Victoria Speech and Language Centre, and has been practicing in speech-language pathology since 2007. Now she leads a large multidisciplinary clinical team and substantial admin team, supporting service delivery within 2 commercial properties and programs hosted at daycare centers, schools, and private homes. She has extensive experience working with autistic children of all ages in one-to-one therapy and in small peer groups, and has gained broad experience assessing and treating adults with swallowing disorders due to conditions such as a stroke, progressive neurological disease, or even brain injury. Carla is passionate about neurodiversity affirming practices and has initiated several educational initiatives for clients and caregivers, demonstrating her commitment to keeping her practice at the forefront of the field. In her spare time, Carla enjoys spending time with her husband and their 2 boys, as well as biking, hiking, running, and anything active and outdoors. Let's dive in with Carla. Welcome to the Stacking Your Team podcast, Carla.
Thanks, Shelley. Thanks for having me.
I'm thrilled to have you here. It's one of my favorite things to do is to show off my clients. And you have an incredible story to tell. You've come a long way from your solo practice, and you've just built something phenomenal. I know you're having a significant impact in your community. So tell us more about this one dynamic that I think is unique in your business. Well, 2 things really. So one is the whole First Nations concept. Tell us more about why that is having such an impact in your business.
Yeah, I guess it started almost a year and a half ago. We got approached by one of the local Indigenous First Nations in our community. We are in Victoria, BC in Canada, and we have many Indigenous communities surrounding us. And they reached out wanting services for their kids in their community. And they were just looking to apply for a grant called Jordan's Principle. So Jordan's Principle is a federal agency through the federal government that provides grants and funding to Indigenous kids so that they essentially aren't getting left behind. There's a lot of Indigenous kids that are getting left behind because they live in remote communities and they can't access services. And that whole grant was actually based on a child that died in care while the government was fighting, the provincial government and federal government were fighting over who to pay for his care. And the child actually died in care. It was an Indigenous child. So this grant was set up in his name. That's why it's called Jordan's Principle, because he was Jordan. Anyway, so we were approached by this nation and we thought it sounded like a great opportunity. And I went out myself, actually, personally, even though I don't see clients anymore, I went out and did the assessments, kind of screenings to just see what is the need, Because when we apply for a grant, we actually have to put the kids' names and ages in there, being like, these are the kids we're going to see. We don't just get to ask for a blanket amount of money. That would be way easier. So I went out and I assessed the need, and there was significant need, So we had kids there who are 2 years old, 3 years old, who have significant developmental needs, have not had any medical care whatsoever, doctor, speech therapist, occupational therapist, and likely weren't going to get eyes laid on them until kindergarten, until they entered kindergarten. And so it was exciting to think that we could provide that need. Now, we have public services in Victoria. There's a long wait list. It's about 10 months to even get eyes laid on your kid. But that requires a family to self-refer or get a doctor refer, and then to follow through on the paperwork that they send you to fill out to complete the referral, and then to actually make it to the appointment, which is nowhere near their actual home community, right? So there's lots and lots of barriers. And then, of course, all the systemic barriers to them accessing services. So the community really wanted to get services in their communities so that they could reduce the barriers to access for the families. And that was just right in line with what we believe in. And so we put together a big proposal, submitted it to Jordan's principal, and it got approved, which was amazing. And so we had funded 2 days a week of speech therapy, 2 days a week of occupational therapy, and a day a week of music therapy in the community. And so we were there right in the daycare. We're in there. We're still there. In the preschool, we're in the after school care. So that right there reduces the barrier because families aren't having to even bring their kid to the services because they're already there getting care. And we've been able to develop relationships with all the community members. So we're a trusted community member, which is key, right? And being able to work really, really slowly and learn from them, right? What is services going to look like here in your community? Because it's going to look really different than what services might look like, in a white person's home or in our clinic. So that was exciting. And then we decided to expand that and reach out to other communities and offer our services. And now we're working in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different First Nation communities in our local area, all under Jordan's Principal grants. And a couple of them are actually paying us directly because Jordan's Principal is quite a pain to get. And there's lots of bureaucratic hoops to jump through. So sometimes it's easier for them to just pay us directly.
Oh my goodness, that's remarkable. Talk about having an impact in your community. That's so incredible on so many levels. Tell us more about the autistic funding as well. You've got that happening as well through the government. What's happening there? What's the update? Has the government brought you up to speed on where we're at with that?
Right. I was just actually reading an email this morning about that. So autism funding is a BC provincial funding. It's, as far as I know, is pretty much the only one in the country. People actually move here to BC if they have a child who's autistic in order to receive the funding. So if the child is under 6 years old with a diagnosis of autism, they get $22,000 a year in a kind of government account that they get to allot to different services of their choosing. So the parents are in control of the funding, which is really different than all the other provinces where the parents have to go to public service agencies to get services there. There's long wait lists. They get usually consultative services. So that's once a month if they're lucky. So in BC, they get that funding to use how they want to use it. If the child is over 6, they get $6,000 a year. So that's been interesting in BC because that's been about 20 years now, maybe longer. So it's actually had a lot of private clinics pop up in BC due to that funding. And so there's pros and cons to that. Not all of the clinics have regulated professionals. So as speech pathologists and occupational therapists and counselors, we are college regulated, which is really important because we have to follow bylaws. And there is a regulatory board looking over us. And parents have somewhere to complain if we are doing anything unethical. Whereas some of the clinics popping up are behavior consultants. They are not a regulated profession. So pros and cons. But I would say I just looked at our 2025 year in review, and about 50% of all our sales come from autism funding. So that's a pretty significant amount, right? And I often think at night, what am I going to do if that gets pulled away? So about 4 years ago, the government actually announced they were cutting autism funding. And as you can imagine, there was a big uproar, but not as big as you would expect. I remember going to a rally at our legislative buildings, and I had a speech all prepared, and there were like, 50, 75 people there. I was like, come on, families. Like, they're about to cut your funding. Where are you? But But the problem is that the families that we are serving, they are at their max. They are burnt out. They are dealing with a child with support needs, and they don't have the bandwidth. Half of my families didn't really even understand what was happening, what was being proposed. I remember one family saying, well, like, does that mean I'm not going to get funding anymore? Yes, that's exactly what it means. You're not going to get your funding anymore. So anyways, there was enough of an uproar from the service providers in the province and the families that they decided to pause that. They said, okay, we hear you, pause. It was after about a year of thinking it was going to disappear. And then at that pause, they decided to do some pilot projects. So they came out with a new fandangled idea that they were going to take the individualized funding that parents get to access and actually pump that back into the public services and just expand the public services. So they did 4 pilot sites. From my understanding, and I don't know all firsthand, but it's been quite a disaster, that the pilot sites are now done. They were given an extra year, and we expect it to be announced sometime this spring what they are going to do next. But it hasn't been announced. But from our understanding, from what the premier said, it sounds like regardless, they're not going to fully get rid of individualized funding. But we will have to see. And if it happens, I'll have to pivot. And I've just kind of come to terms with that, and I feel confident that we can pivot. And likely there's going to be some subcontract work from the provincial government. If they go back to public services, the idea was to sub it out. So likely we're in a position that we will be able to access some of those subcontracts because we're pretty much the biggest multidisciplinary clinic in Victoria.
And you've done some deep dive into thinking about what those pivots could be. So you've taken the time to think about worst case scenario. If we lose this funding, this is going to impact 50% of my revenue. How am I going to address that? So I think that's part of the problem with, or a challenge with business owners is thinking worst case scenario is one thing, but actually coming up with some contingency plans is another. Because having the plans, even if you never really have to put them in place, creates such a level of calm and confidence that you at least know what your first next step would be.
Exactly. Yeah. And actually, since that got announced 4 years ago now, I've already been pivoting. So my team knows that autism funding, and that is our lowest priority in terms of like the funding we want to build relationships with. So when we get Jordan's principal referrals, when we get referrals from private schools, when we get referrals from dentists, my team knows like we are cultivating those relationships to try and diversify our funding sources. So we've been putting that into play for the last few years and really trying to be ready if it does shift.
Yeah, be ready. That's the whole point there for sure. So you have built a substantial sized practice. You have 2 locations. You have a really large team. And another aspect of your business, which I think is really interesting, is that you do a lot of international hiring. So can you tell us more about why are you hiring internationally and what are some of the challenges with that?
I wouldn't say I've done a lot. I've done a little bit, but it was about 3 years ago. I could not hire a pediatric occupational therapist for the life of me. I had ads out for months. We tried taking students. Like we just could not hire anybody. Problem being is that all of the schools in Canada, when we have way fewer schools than in the States, right? So when we're talking OT and SLP schools in Canada, we're talking, we have 6 speech pathology universities in the whole country. OT, I'm not sure, but it's probably about 10 or 12. Like very few programs are pumping out clinicians in Canada compared to the States, which probably have that amount in each state. And those occupational therapy programs are primarily adult focused. So even if a student goes in and thinks, I want to work pediatric, they come out not feeling confident in that. They maybe had 1 course in pediatrics, the rest was in adults. They likely didn't have a placement, like one of their 4 externship placements in pediatrics. They only had them in adults, so they don't feel confident, they don't feel ready. And so they end up going to work with adults. So yeah, and it was really, really hard to find them. So I decided to try international. So I posted on the Canada Job Bank on the federal website I found. And that is where you can post hire internationally. And I had some people apply. I don't know. I feel like the stars were aligned because I tried that again about a year later and I did not get applications. So something aligned that year that just worked. But I had 4 OTs internationally that I had technically offered a job to. And so one was from Saudi and working in Dubai. One was from Pakistan and one was from South Africa, and the other one was American. And so 3 of the 4 actually ended up getting permanent residency. Yeah, and then ended up working for us. One no longer works for us. And the other one in the States, I just don't think it ever came through. I haven't heard from her in ages. And so I don't think the permanent residency ever came through for her. She had lots of delays. But yeah, it was a massive journey for them. It took them, the shortest time was a year from applying and saying yes to getting her permanent residency. And one of them took up to 2 years to get residency and apply to the college and get accepted and go through the rigmarole of the college. The college requires you to take 2 more written exams and a 6-hour live verbal exam online with 1 15-minute break.
That is outrageous.
It's intense. It's nothing compared to what the speech pathologists have to go through if they're internationally trained. It's outrageous. And it's really hard because, for example, we have one of our OTs from South Africa. She's got at least 10 years experience, very skilled OT, has only ever worked pediatrics. But now when she has to go take this entry to practice exam to Canada, she is going to get tested on the whole gamut of adults. And it's 95% adults on that exam. And this is stuff she hasn't studied for over 10 years. So it was really challenging for her, but she just passed actually 2 weeks ago. So that was exciting.
Yeah. So she was on our team leader call yesterday and that was her win. And we had been like along the journey with her because she had told us what that all entailed. And we were just mind boggled about the whole thing. So we were all thrilled for her that it was over. I mean, and she's, married, she's got kids. I mean, it's not like she didn't have a life and you could just buckle down and do all this studying. So yeah, we were thrilled for her. Absolutely thrilled for her.
So yeah, and then actually since Trump got in, we have had numerous American applicants just reaching out, just finding us. I don't even have ads out, but I have a permanent ad on my website and they are reaching out, trying to immigrate and trying to get job offers. And so I've actually got a few offers out now, accepted offers to potential applicants with the understanding that they may never come. Their immigration may or may not go through. It's gotten a lot harder since Trump got in. A lot harder. The points and the criteria have gone up a ton. Luckily, I was able to hire a few years ago when it was possible. There's always the Americans who are trying to get up here too. So,
well, I don't think that's just happening in your industry. That's happening in many industries. There is a lot of interest in people relocating and becoming permanent residents of Canada's shoes. And we're happy to welcome them in, right? We want the talent. Like, come on in.
Oh, yeah. To get experienced clinicians applying. I was like, yes, please.
Yeah, for sure.
Great.
So what was happening in your business that really sparked you to want to come and join the Leadership Lab? What was going on back then? Like, think back. What was happening 6 months ago?
Well, I had a previous business coach from about 2023 for about a year and a half who brought me out of a very, very dark time. So I heard even someone posted on the Facebook group that I belong to, private practitioners, and going like, in your first year business, what's your biggest advice? And I was like, get a business coach before you think you need one. Like, I wish I'd done it years ago. But then I felt like I kind of outgrew her a little bit. And I was ready for a break, and I was ready for a bit of a change and a bit more structure and a bit of a group setting. And I've been following your podcast for a while. I managed to just come across it because I follow one of your past clients, who's a speech pathologist, Jessie Ginsburg, down in the States. I follow her, and one day she posted, go in to meet, at Stacking Your Team. And I was like, well, who's she following? And then I pressed that button, and I was just kind of ready. I was ready for more. I really wanted to focus on my leadership skills and have just a bit more structure, have some of that coursework and the modules to go through, and have someone who had experience with diverse businesses, not just my previous coach just coached allied health professionals, which was great. It was exactly what I needed at that time. And then now I felt like I just needed something different.
I've known Jessie since 2016. She's actually coming back on the podcast. We're going to do a revisit of where is she now. So that's always fun too. But one of the things I remember about you, like when we first talked, You said, I want to improve my leadership skills and be the best boss they've ever had.
Yeah,
You still feel that way?
I do. And you know what? Part of this has made me realize it's actually like I was already doing a lot of what I wasn't sure if I was doing it, if that makes sense. So when I joining these and hearing your feedback and hearing all the other clients' questions and reading some books that they all suggested, which has been super helpful. I needed to move on to audiobooks. I could not stay focused on reading paperback books, so I never did any of them. And the audiobooks has been key. And I just realized, I was like, oh, actually, I think I'm doing it. Like, I think I'm mostly on the right track. So that actually just really clarified that for me. Doing our mission and vision and values this year. So we actually went through a big process of that and refined what we made them. We didn't have any. Really kind of set us on that path. And yeah, that is my goal. I mean, I told our team at the retreat this year in my speech, I was like, thank you for coming along for the ride of like helping me achieve my goal of being the best leader you've ever had, the best place you've ever worked. That like truly is what I want. And I do my best to do that every day, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're doing it. The other thing that you said you wanted to do was you wanted to have more documentation so the team could be more self-sufficient because you have a large team across 2 locations. And if you were the middleman to answer every question, respond to every email, every Slack message, I mean, come on, you just can't. So how are you feeling now about the level of documentation you have and then the level of like self-sufficiency that you've got across the team?
Yeah, amazing. Like amazing. And I think the biggest thing for me, that is not my forte. That is not how my brain works. I actually usually dislike processes and rules and policies. And I sure as the heck don't want to create them and write them.
No, I don't really know who does.
Oh, trust me. I have people who work for me who do, or do it way better than I do at least. And so that's been part of it is like leaning into my team and finding the people who have different brains than mine. I really realized because there's a reason that I got 7 years into my practice and didn't have a policy manual because it's just not the way my brain works. And it'll be fine. I'll be fine. And then I started realizing, my staff really want it. They want somewhere to look. They don't want to have to ask the questions. So we onboarded 10 new occupational therapists this year in 2025, which is outrageous.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was, I don't even know. It's just, again, the stars aligned and it was something else. They're all mostly new grads. So that poses its extra layer. But we've really rolled out a ton of SOPs, standard operating procedures, and it's been great. And every time they ask a question that we don't have written down somewhere, I throw it right on our list of SOPs to make. And we've got our list going and my HR manager, Liz, is amazing. She's basically doing them all. If I have ideas, I'll brain dump onto a document and then she takes it, she edits it, she formats it. And we're rolling out like 3 to 4 SOPs a week right now. And then also really training the admin team and her and I that when anyone has a question, if it's on an SOP, you just give them the link and remind them where that SOP is. You do not answer that question.
That's the key. That's the key, Carla.
And that's been going really, really well. And the team likes it. The more people I have on my team, the more I realize not everybody's brain is like mine. So there are some of our new team members who really, really want that structure, who really want to make sure that they're doing it the right way. And so that they don't feel like they made a mistake. And so they know exactly what to do. And so that's made me realize that, no, it needs to be documented so that, everybody can access it and feel comfortable.
Well, with having 10 new team members all in 1 year, I know the other thing that you really buckled down on and did a fantastic job was you created a comprehensive onboarding process. And that sounds like, oh yeah, sure, everyone has an onboarding process. No, not everybody does. And there's different degrees of efficiencies within that onboarding process. But one of the components that you developed that I was just over the moon about, and I asked you to come in and share it with your peers. So we decided to launch a How She Does It segment here in the Leadership Lab. So every now and then, when I learn about a client who's got something that I think is just fantastic, we bring you in, you're the guest instructor for the call, And it's really like how she does it. And so for your how she does it, it was your introduction of the new hire business 101 training. And we were all fascinated by the detail that you had there and how you'd created a very rinse and repeatable training process that ensured consistency. Like, and it's evergreen. Like, you might have to do a couple minor tweaks to it over the years, like as the business evolves. But so tell us more about that. So first of all, why did you do it? Why did you finally decide, hey, we just need this business asset? I've got to create this business asset. So why did you do it? And then tell us a little bit more about the components of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I try not to get into this, as you know, it was a riveting long story of why I got into this. But basically what you're talking about is a component of my onboarding. So, I mean, our onboarding process is huge, but this is a 1 hour. They sit down, every new onboard now sits down with me for 1 hour and goes over the basics of business and the basics of their contract. And why I did that is I had a significant breach of contract about a year ago from one of our contractors. It hurt a lot personally because I had a really good working relationship with that person. And I had handed them this perfectly amazing contract on a platter. It was like great guaranteed billable time. It was a great contract. It was everything they were looking for. I even, as a contractor, I paid for mentorship for them because it was with an Indigenous community. I paid for mentorship for them weekly for a few months just so they felt secure enough to take it because she didn't want to take it. And so, I poured my heart into it. And then I found out that they had been contacted about another nation and had transferred that email over to their personal email. Like the email, because I obviously went into their accounts after I found out and I saw the email, it was a direct referral for Victoria Speech and Language Center sent to their work email. And they forwarded that email to her personal email. And then she continued to communicate with that nation directly through her personal email, telling them like, I'd like to take this contract personally. And they were in communication. Long story short, I was also in communication with that nation, not knowing that she was in communication. It was a mess. And anyways, 3 months later, she told me about it and, jumped to the conclusion. We terminate our contract. She's no longer working with us. We are not working with that new nation. We did maintain our contract with the current nation, but through the conversations with her and other team members, also through an anonymous staff survey we had sent out around the same time, and we were starting to look at the feedback, we dug in a lot and we realized, oh, wow, there is a lot of misconceptions about what this business means, what it takes to run it, what the profitability is, what Carla's role is, what I can and cannot do as a contractor. A lot of misconceptions, a lot of misunderstanding. I remember looking at one of the contractors and I said, it's like some people might think I take that clinic cut. For example, some of my old contractors are on a 70% commission, which is outrageous. And I never should have done it, but we're honoring that. And so it feels like they think I take the 30% and I just put it in my pocket. And she basically looked at me and confirmed. And I thought, oh, wow, okay, there's a lot of education that needs to happen here. And so we decided to create a 1 hour meeting. We had a mandatory meeting. I created a big PowerPoint presentation and to go over the basics of business. I did it like 6 to 8 weeks later when my jets had cooled down a little bit. And it goes over the basics of their contract. Okay, so what cannot do? When is a referral yours and when does it belong to the clinic? So we made that very clear that we pay for your email account. We have access to your email account. Don't use it for personal reasons. And if anything comes to your work account, that is Victoria Speech and Language referral. So that they're getting this from day one. So there's no questions about their contract. And then we dive into just business. I realized if they've been raised in a family that didn't have a small business owner or government employees, or they've never worked for a small business, how would they know any of this? I didn't know it before I went in. So we go over the basics of what does profit even mean? Why do we need profit? Well, profit is how we were able to purchase this beautiful new building or how we're able to do a massive renovation to get a huge sensory gym, which attracted 10 new OTs this year to serve the hundreds of kids on our wait list. Profit is not owner's salary. We go into the basics of costs. I tell them percentages, do the math. Our overhead is 25% of the cost of services sold. So if we're paying 70%, do the math. That is too narrow of a profit margin. We go over the basics of what does it look like if a clinic is not profitable enough? What happens when that owner retires? That clinic shuts. Nobody's going to buy that clinic. Now nobody has a job and all these clients lose their services, right? I talk about my long-term plan, which I think is nice for them to know. I would love to sell this business to 3 or 4 of them that band together and buy this business from me one day. I don't want to sell to a big corporation if I can help it, but they're going to need a big loan. And in order to get a big loan, you're going to need to show the books, which need to show profit, consistent year after year. And so that's why profit matters. So we just really break it down. I let them know I didn't pay myself for the first 2 years. And then I paid myself a modest salary, less than most of you, for the next 7 years. And just this year, in 2024, I gave myself a raise in 2025, I gave myself a raise to what it would cost to actually replace me as a clinical director with the responsibility that I have. So just all that stuff that really most of them had no idea. And the feedback's been amazing.
They would never have an opportunity to have that kind of a peek behind the curtain. And I think what really impressed me a lot about this, Carla, was I could see how much easier it is to hold people accountable to your 5-hour work plans and your standards of quality care and compliance if you start treating these new hires as professionals from day one. We don't expect them, give them a time frame and say, within 90 days or maybe by the end of the first year, they'll get it. No, you start with the expectation on day one of you're part of our team now. And part of what we do here is we're all professional adults here. And part of what you're going to do here is not only you're going to be providing services, but you're going to learn how this business runs. And being that transparent, I think really helps those grads cross a bridge into the realities of being a real person, a real adult in the workplace. And I just love the whole idea of the transparency of it all, and then telling stories that really help send home the points that you're trying to make. So I know your peers in the leadership lab, they were just fascinated listening to the backstories, and some of the comments that were coming in the chat box were just their minds were blown. But it also sparked an idea for them. It gave them permission to be upfront from the get-go and treat people as working professionals. They're not students anymore. These grads, they're not students. You're not in student life anymore. I'm not your professor. I am your employer. I am your leader. And here's what it's going to take to continue to be employed here. So I love all that. And I bet they had great feedback for you, because they probably have never been shown the detail that you provided.
And they really appreciated the transparency. They really did. They just have a different level of insight into what it goes into the business, right? And the kind of financial risk that I've taken on. That's the big one. It's really we didn't just own this business out of nowhere. The bank owns most of it. I have a huge financial risk. I had to make that decision for my family together. Are we going to take on this massive mortgage or not? So I think that really helps them have perspective and see me not just as doing the odd math, thinking I'm taking the 30% and putting it in my pocket and getting rich off of them.
No. And I think it helps them understand the cost of keeping the doors open in 2 locations.
Yeah. And I think the other point I made in there that I was very transparent about, it's yes, I'm paying myself a salary, but am I building something bigger than that? I also wasn't poor wool with me. It was yes, I am building something bigger than my salary. And I hope that one day I can sell this and that will, I don't say generate wealth, but that will create something for me. And I say it's frankly, it better, because I'm not doing all of this for just a salary. Because if I wanted just a salary, I would go get a job at, in public health or the schools. I'm not doing this for just a salary. So, the counter argument of building more, yes, for sure I'm building more. And I should be. And the health of the business is to your benefit. If the business is healthy, you have a job, your clients are getting served. So what is good for the business is good for you. And that's really what I try and bring across to them as well.
Yeah, I love it. The other things that you've really doubled down on this year is leaning into the tools. So the 5-hour work plan. So I know that you've created a 5-hour work plan for your HR leader. You also created one for your office manager. So what was your initial thought when you even heard about this 5-hour work plan? Like, was there ever a moment where you thought, yeah, I don't need that?
Oh, that was my very first thought. Remember, I don't like processes and and detail. I was like, oh, I don't know about that. And then I thought, okay, Shelley said it's really important. She's probably right. She knows what she's talking about. I guess I'll sit down and try to do this. It's still a work in progress. And it was a good exercise. And Liz and I, our HR manager, we're working on it. We've got a couple other priorities right now, but we see the value in it for sure. And Liz said even just doing hers was helpful to like reset those priorities. So it's still a work in progress, but I definitely am bought into the value of it for sure.
Yeah, it really just provides clarity for every single person on the team. They know what they're getting paid to do and what they're not getting paid to do for sure. So have you noticed, is there anything that you no longer tolerate? So like as a business owner, as a woman that owns a business, as a woman that owns a multi-location brick and mortar business, are there things now that you just say, no, no, and no? No, not going to tolerate that. Not going to honor that. Not going to abide by that.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's lots. Where do I start? One of the big things is if I know somebody's not a right fit, stop trying so hard to make it work, right? Stop. I mean, how many times have I tried to make it work? It'll work. Just they need more support. They need more coaching. They need more this, more that, more mentoring. And if it's not going to work, like we really hold tight to that 3 months probation. In fact, our clinicians are on 6 months probations when they start so that we really have time. And I'm just less forgiving now. You know, I know pretty fast now if you're going to be a right fit for our agency or not. And if you're not, then I'm going to let you go sooner than later. So that's been a really big learning lesson, is not just keeping people around because I think that I don't have someone to replace them or I feel bad but that's taken me years and practice of letting people go. It's the worst part. It's the worst. So that's one thing. I'm way better at accountability and just being really direct with people. Like, hey, I noticed that you haven't done this yet. Can you tell me more about this? So really just being really direct with accountability now. I feel like is something I just don't tolerate not accountability, but I've set up better systems for that too.
Mm-hmm. That helps, right? Like being able to be consistent and treat everyone fairly, not having any kind of favoritism, not turning a blind eye from someone and then, magnifying someone else. Yeah, it really helps with the consistency. So are there things that feel lighter now?
Everything.
Like in terms of your leadership and your style, everything feels lighter. So the reason why I'm asking this is we just came off a leadership lab call. And one of the things that you said, I'm paraphrasing here, but you said something like, this is the first time ever that I've felt this much in control and less concern about things. Why is that? Is it the fact that you're like a wise woman now, like you're another year under your belt? Like what is so different right now that you actually notice it and then you said it out loud?
Because we're finally organized enough. We finally have enough staffing of admin support. I mean, we've got eight admin support between admin, scheduling, HR, and finance teams. So we finally have the right staffing levels. We have people trained to do their job, doing their job. We finally have an OT clinical lead, which we didn't have for years, and an SLP clinical lead. So we just have all the right people in all the right places and all the systems set up, right? And all the procedures all written out mostly. And we have clinical onboarding documents, and everything's just kind of running. It's running like a little machine, and I don't have to be involved in everything. And that part is huge. And also like the self-growth, like just that incident with the contract breach last year, that shook me so hard. And I really learned to kind of also just let things go. Stop worrying about what people think about me. step into my CEO role. I remember when that happened, that breach happened, I was on my way to a ski trip with my best friends. It was the most awful timing. And I ruminated on it for the whole week. And I couldn't even stop thinking about it, talking about it. I remember my girlfriend looked at me and she was like, Carla, you need to step into your big girl CEO pants and quit trying to be everyone's friend and quit trying to make everybody happy and just step into that role. And since then, I've kind of just done that more. And it's worked well. And it's allowed me some peace to just not worry about it as much. And I think that people respect me being in that position. So I think those are the big things.
Yeah, because it's not like everything is perfect in your business. Like you've had other team challenges this year and you were able to address them in the right way and not be so married to the outcome. Where a lot of business owners are, like a lot of business owners will just accommodate, redeploy work, readjust this, like out of fear that someone's going to quit. And the fear of quitting is, oh, those skills will walk out the door. Oh my Lord, I'm going to have to start hiring again. Oh, I hate the whole hiring thing. Oh, what will this say to her? This will ruffle some feathers across the team. Like there's a million stories that she'll tell herself as to why she needs to try and keep this person and keep this person happy. When, you did have one significant team disruption this year that I watched you lead through that. And I thought, yeah, she's got it. Mm-hmm.
But you gave me great advice. I got on a 911 call with you and I was literally typing a mile a minute, everything you're saying. I was like, yes, right. Okay, yep, right. Yeah, I was just like, I literally transcribed the whole meeting. That was so helpful to have somebody to call and walk me through it. And like, am I going crazy? This is crazy, right? What this person was kind of putting forth to me. And yeah, and I think the more I go through those situations, I guess it gets easier, but it just stays with me for less time. Right. And I know that I'll get through this and I'll manage and I can pivot and I can come up with solutions. And I did. You actually encouraged me. You're like, it sounds like she's going. I was like, because I was committed that she couldn't leave. I was like, no, Shelly, I can't lose her. I have to keep her for like another 6 months. And you were like, no, Carla, and you better start plan B right now. I was like, dang it. Okay, you're right. And we got off that phone call and I started plan B right then and there. And I had a plan B set up by the time she left and it worked out.
It doesn't make things like sting any less, but what it does help, you're right, it does help you to release the negativity, release the situation, release the person back out into the big world of work and know that they will go find another opportunity in another workplace that will be a better fit for them. And then you get to take back control of your team culture and take back control of the happiness of everyone's happiness at work again. It is so important to be able to do that. But the whole idea of being mature enough to not like hold so tightly to these really hard, painful situations that happen and to be able to just go, that was awful. Oh my God, that was awful. And goodbye. And you just like blow it out into the wind and off it goes. And then move into something more productive, like plan B, succession planning, stepping in and checking in on the health of the rest of the team, looking to see if there's any kind of ripple effect that I need to repair out there. That's way more productive work as a leader than to be all curled up in a ball, thinking my business is going to tank if this person leaves. It really won't.
Yeah. And I think on that note also is we're at a place financially where we're not going to suffer if we lose somebody. So that's also, I know that when you're small and you have 3 people or 4 people or 5 people and you've got a space you're renting, one person leaving, cuts into your profit. Like it can put you at a loss, right? So luckily we're at a place now where we're stable enough. I was actually just with our finance team and we had a strike in the government a couple months ago and our receivables are out of control right now. But I told them, I'm like, look, this is why we focus on being financially healthy and stable because we can weather this storm. But I've got colleagues in Vancouver that are going into major lines of credit because they're still trying to pay their staff while they're waiting on the backlog of the government pay to come in, right? So that has also been a good place where I can know that people can leave and we're not going to be in dire financial troubles.
How can people stay connected to you, Carla? Because without a doubt, this has been like a masterclass on how to lead a multi-location brick-and-mortar private practice. And I think people are going to be really intrigued to watch you and your team in action. So let's send them to the right place. Let's show them the way. Show them how to get over there and watch all of you in action.
Right. Well, you can find us we just got on socials this year, believe it or not. We never felt the need to before. So you can find us Victoria Speech and Language Center on Instagram and on Facebook. And you can see our website, victoriaspeechlanguage.ca. Oh, we also have a sister agency, actually, that I should put a shout out to. And that's called the Responsive Feeding Center of BC.
And tell us more about that. What are we doing there?
There, it is a comprehensive parent training program as well as individual therapy for feeding. So that is more along the lines of your neurodivergent kids with autism, kids with other needs, mostly highly picky eaters or what's called ARFID, avoidant restrictive feeding intake disorder. So there, we've actually created our own course, and it's a passion project. This one is not profitable yet. That's why it's our little baby sister agency. But it's a passion project, and it is serving all of BC. And we've created a 6-week parent course where the parents come in small groups, learn from either our OT, which is occupational therapist, speech pathologist, or dietitian. And they take this course together for 6 weeks to really learn the nuts and bolts of like, what is a responsive feeding approach? And how can I make that change at home? So we put the parents in the driver's seat. The research really shows that is what is effective. Us coming into your home once a week, putting on our feeding therapy hat and playing with your kid with food and doing feeding therapy, that's not going to make the change. It's getting those parents on board and getting their lens shift is really what makes the change. And we've had some like amazing case stories coming out of that. So,
well, I really appreciate you coming, spending some time with us here on the podcast. Carla, I think, so much of what you had to share with us today is really going to resonate with other practice owners. And I don't mean aspirationally, I mean operationally. I think what you've done today is you've really uncovered some of the gaps and constraints that were in your business, but also showed people how to go after it and make things what they are today. So I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing you on our next call.
Great. Thanks a lot, Shelley. I appreciate it.
Now, if you listened to this and thought, that felt like a masterclass, that's because it was. Not theory, not best practices pulled from a book, real leadership decisions made inside a real private practice with real people, real pressure, and real consequences. What I hope you heard today isn't just what she did, but how she thinks as a confident leader. That shift from reacting, rescuing, and carrying everything herself to leading with clarity, structure, and intention is what allows a business like Carla's to grow without breaking her in two. This is the work that leaders do. And when you do it well, it changes everything. Be sure to connect with Carla with the links you'll find in the show notes. And if you're ready to step into your role as CEO like Carla, we're welcoming new members into the Leadership Lab right now. If today's episode helps you see your leadership in a new way, I'd love to hear about it. Come connect with me on Instagram, where I'm at Stacking Your Team, and tell me what's troubling you about your team right now. And hey, if you're tuning into this podcast because you work somewhere and you want to develop your leadership skills, I invite you to start following our sister company, Thousand Islands Leadership Consulting. Check us out on Instagram or LinkedIn so you can chart your course to the next level of leadership.
This is Ellie. Come back next Tuesday. My Mimi will have another episode for you.